In the last video, we looked at how we could transfer our knitting from our circular needles onto DPNs when we had too few stitches to knit comfortably. You might suppose that as we get fewer and fewer stitches on our circular needles, that we need smaller and smaller circular needles to knit them, but actually the opposite is true. And what we need are circular needles with very long wires. The needles themselves still need to be the same size as your project, but I'm using a set of 80mm circular needles. So I'm just going to knit these stitches from these needles onto these needles. Remembering to take your stitch markers across. So I've got one stitch left on my circular needles. I'm going to knit that off and we can put these to one side. And you can see that all my stitches are now sitting on the wire of my long set of circular needles. So to start knitting the magic loop, we're going to divide our stitches in half. It doesn't have to be exact, just roughly. So if we bend our wire between two stitches, like that, and then pull the wire until our stitches reach the needles. And then we're going to put the stitches to knit onto our front needles. Sorry, our front needle. And then the back needle becomes our right hand needle to knit with. So ignore all these stitches sitting on the wire. We're only interested in knitting what's sitting on our left hand needle at the moment. So our red stitch marker indicates that we're at the beginning of a round. And I know that the blue stitch marker means that when I've got two stitches before that blue marker to knit two together. So I'll just keep knitting those stitches until I reach the end of the stitches on this needle. So here I have one stitch left on my left hand needle, which I'm going to knit over to my right hand needle. And then I'm going to slide all stitches off my needle where I've just knitted them back onto the wire. Turn our work round so that our needles are to the right. These are the stitches we've just knitted and slid off that needle. So now we're going to divide our stitches in two again. Again, doesn't have to be exact. Bend the wire between those stitches, pull until we butt up to the needles, and then the stitches at the front go onto the front needle. And then we bring the back needle around so that we can knit and it's in our right hand. So again, I'm just going to knit. Oops, my working yarn's got caught. There we go. And because I've got the blue stitch marker, I haven't had to keep track. I know that I've got two stitches to knit together there. Again, I now no longer have any needles on my left hand needle. we're going to slide these stitches from our right hand needle back onto the wire, and then with our needles to the right hand side, divide our stitches again in half, bend the wire, slide our stitches up to the needles, placing the stitches on the front needle, bringing the back needle round so that it becomes our right hand needle to knit with. And using this method, you can end up with as few as 4 stitches on the same set of circular needles before binding off.